A few years ago, doctors accidentally recorded the brain of a dying man, and in his final 30 seconds, they saw something that should not have been possible. His brain lit up in the exact pattern of a person remembering their entire life at once. Not slowing down, not shutting off, surging. Which raises a question none of us can fully escape. When your heart stops, does everything just end? Or does something else happen first? By the end of this video, you'll know what science has actually caught on camera, what the smartest philosophers think it means, and what billions of people across history have believed happens next. Some of it will surprise you. Stay with me. Let's start with what we can measure. When the heart stops, the body doesn't switch off like a light. It's more like a power grid losing sections one at a time. Cells stop getting oxygen. Within minutes, brain activity changes dramatically, but it doesn't necessarily vanish instantly. In fact, one of the strangest findings in recent years came from researchers monitoring a dying patient's brain by accident. As the heart stopped, they recorded a surge of organized brain activity, the same patterns associated with memory recall and dreaming. Some scientists think this might explain why so many people who are resuscitated describe a similar experience. A sense of leaving the body, moving toward light, or reliving memories in vivid detail. This is what's called a near-death experience, and it's been reported by people across every culture, every religion, and even people with no religious belief at all. The common threads are strange: calm, light, a feeling of vastness, sometimes meeting someone familiar. Scientists don't agree on what causes this. Some think it's the brain's last defense mechanism, flooding itself with calming chemicals. Others think it reflects oxygen deprivation, creating vivid hallucinations. And some researchers are simply honest that we don't yet know enough about consciousness to rule anything out. Which brings us to a harder question, one biology alone can't answer. Here's the puzzle. We know what happens to a body. We're far less certain about what happens to consciousness. Consciousness is strange because it's the one thing we experience directly and the one thing science struggles to fully explain. We can map which neurons fire when you feel pain, or see red, or fall in love. But we can't fully explain why any of that produces an inner experience at all. Philosophers call this the hard problem of consciousness. So when the brain stops, does the experience of being you stop too? Or does consciousness rely on the brain the way a radio relies on a receiver, meaning the signal could, in theory, exist independently of the device that picks it up? Most neuroscientists lean toward the first view. Consciousness is what the brain does, and when the brain stops, so does the experience. But it's worth noticing that this is still a philosophical position, not a proven fact. Nobody has ever directly observed the moment consciousness turns off, any more than they've observed it turning on in a newborn. The philosopher Epicurus tried to dissolve the fear of death altogether with a simple argument. Death is nothing to us, he said, because as long as we exist, death is not here, and once it arrives, we no longer exist to experience it. In other words, you were never present for your own absence. It's a comforting logic. But comfort and truth aren't always the same thing, which is why humans have never stopped searching for a third possibility. Long before neuroscience, every culture built its own answer to this question. And the range is remarkable. In many Western religious traditions, death is a threshold. The self continues in some form, facing judgment, reward, or reunion with the divine. In Hindu and Buddhist traditions, death is often described not as an ending, but a transition. Consciousness moving from one form to another, shaped by the actions of the life before it, cycling until it reaches liberation. In many indigenous traditions around the world, death isn't a departure from the community at all. Ancestors remain present, woven into the life of the living through memory, ritual, and land. And in more secular or naturalistic worldviews, meaning doesn't come from what happens after. It comes from what continues, the energy in your body returning to the earth, the ideas you shared living on in others, the simple fact that you were here at all and it briefly mattered. What's striking is that despite wildly different explanations, almost every tradition agrees on one thing. Death is not treated as nothing. It's treated as a transformation of some kind, even by the traditions that don't believe in an afterlife. So where does that leave us? Science can tell us, in increasing detail, what happens to the body and brain in the final moments of life. Philosophy can sharpen the questions about identity and consciousness that biology alone can't settle. And the world's spiritual traditions offer frameworks, not proof, but meaning, for living alongside a mystery that may never fully resolve. Maybe the honest answer is that we're still standing at the edge of what we can know. And maybe that's not a failure. It's just where the map runs out. There's a strange kind of freedom in admitting we don't know. It means the question stays open. For scientists still studying consciousness, for philosophers still arguing about identity, and for each of us, quietly, in the moments we think about it alone. We don't get to know what happens after. But maybe the better question isn't what happens after you die. It's what you do with the fact that right now, you're still here. If this made you think, that's really the point. Let me know in the comments which idea, the science, the philosophy, or the spiritual view, feels closest to what you believe. And if you want more videos that sit with the big questions instead of rushing past them, subscribe. There's more coming.